Welcome to Smash Fiction, the podcast where we pit two or more nerd icons against one another in a battle of strength or wits or, oh dear God, why? And see who would win. This week, Candyman versus Slender Man.
This spooky season, Smash Fiction welcomes you to Smashtoberfest.
For years, the people of Chicago's North Side have lived in fear of a strange and tragic urban legend. The story goes that in the early 1800s, a young black man who had fallen in love with a white woman was hunted down by a lynch mob, who sawed off his hand, smeared him with honey, waited for the bees to sting him to death — slander on bees.
It's not how bees work.
That's not how they do. And burned his body. Since that time, the man's spirit has risen up in vengeance, murdering anyone who says his name 5 times into a mirror with a hook attached to his formerly severed hand. Thus was born the legend of the Candyman. But recently, a group of teenagers arrived in the area, and the talk around town has turned to another subject. Nobody really knows who these kids are, but they claim to be former child contestants on a game show called Where in Time is Carmen Sandiego, and they've been spreading all these weird rumors of a faceless terror called the Slender Man. This vague apparition is said to appear silently from the shadows, steal children, and leave entrails lying all over the trees in the Chicago parks. In the ensuing weeks, Slender Man's name is bandied about more and more frequently, while the Candyman begins to fade from memory. Well, fuck that shit. Nobody forgets the Candyman. The hook-handed undead beehive won't have the kids of Chicago telling some other ghost story, and he resolves to hunt these teenagers down and hook them himself. On the other side of things, well, also, fuck that shit. Slender Man hates it when people talk about him, often specifically targeting those who have demonstrated knowledge of his existence. The many-tentacled but somehow totally not Japanese in origin spirit demon thing wants all these loose lips shut for good, and he resolves to hunt these teenagers down and do something to them. And so it unfolds, as we all knew it would. These two ghostly murderers converge simultaneously in a dark basement, where the kids are holding a nervous late-night Carmen Sandiego board game session, lit by a single candle. Nobody is saying Candyman, mirror, or otherwise, but that doesn't stop him from barging in through the ether, hook raised high. Suddenly, he stops before the terrified teens, and looks beyond them, where a silent specter has emerged from the shadows. The two instantly know they are destined for confrontation, and, ignoring the screaming children, for now, step forward to face one another. Which horrible, horrible, horrible nightmare ghost monster will be able to dispatch the other, and take the act of dispatching the Carmen Sandiego kids all for themselves? I don't know. That's why I, Miles Schneiderman, will be impartially judging this match from under my blanket with flashlight in hand tonight. Representing Candyman are Dan Mulcairn.
You know he'll never stop till he ends up on top. He's the hook-handed, slender-killing Candyman.
Oh. And making her Smash Fiction debut as a regular co-host, MeganBob.
I am the writing on the Facebook wall, the whisper in the podcast.
Representing Team Slender Man are a presumably terrified Liz Logan.
Slender Man, he can do anything. Oh wait, no!
And Kit Mulcairn. Okay, stop that. That's not okay. That's not okay.
No, stop.
To determine who goes first this week, I said Smash Fiction 5 times into a mirror just to prove that the legend wasn't true. Team Slenderman appeared instantly and started arguing with me about Godzilla and Dr. Doom. I managed to keep my composure long enough to wait around to see if Team Candyman would do anything, but then fucking Slenderman actually showed up in the mirror too, and I fucking bailed. So, Team Slenderman wins by default. Team Slenderman...
Oh.
Something. Hey, are you still there? Oh no! Not like this.
So here we have a character that turns even my pants brown. A character that simultaneously is creepier and is able to pull off a suit better than Patrick Bateman. A character whose sole motivation is to traumatize people and get his tentacles all up in yo business. A character so scary and fascinating that I'm gonna stop talking about him now.
Besides being a sharp-dressed man, what is Slender Man? What's his game? Well, that's part of what makes him so terrifying. Like any great being of folklore, no one can really nail down what he is. And like all of the most bone-chillingly creepy monsters out there, which, by the way, does not include Candyman, no one really knows his motivation. Because of his ability to effortlessly teleport and move his victims through time, some posit that he is an extra-dimensional being. As for what drives him, all we have to go off of is his modus operandi. Slender Man is known for taking a deadly interest in those who've taken an interest in him, but will also begin to haunt those connected to his victims. Candyman will probably be his most formidable victim to date, but he'll be a victim nevertheless. Although Candyman is some kind of horrible revenge ghost, and by horrible I'm referring to the quality of his movies, he still originated as a very normal man and has only had to deal with very normal human victims. He is not psychologically prepared for the surreal, faceless figure that boasts his same suite of powers and more. Okay, so Slendy doesn't have ghost bees? Whatever. You ain't fighting Edward Malus, so who cares?
Way to stomp on a future joke.
Yeah, I also had that joke.
Everyone has that joke.
Oh shit, I have a joke about that too. Fuck.
I don't. I have not seen that movie.
Besides being more than strong enough to impale people on lofty tree limbs and being able to pull off multiple attacks in one round thanks to his many extendable tentacles, Slender also has the option of using proxies. In many cases, Slender Man manipulates the minds of others to do his bidding, which typically means murdering the shit out of their own loved ones. Even if Slendy can't get into Candy's head, and I don't see why not, he can mind control and turn the would-be victims of this match against Candyman, essentially distracting the Spectre and leaving Slender Man an easy opening to kill him off camera, because that's how we do. No one that has ever met Slender Man makes it out fine in the end, and no one successfully fights back. He rarely leaves bodies behind, but when he has, they show no signs of struggle. In the game Slender Rising 2, the player has the option of equipping a shotgun, but if they do, they must occasionally fight off the urge, planted in their minds by Slender Man, to shoot themselves in the head. Candyman will be fighting off the compulsion to give himself a hook lobotomy while contending with attacks from berserk proxies and trying to locate his unpredictable opponent. Oh, and since we're on the subject of guns, in the ARG vlog Tribe 12, Slender Man is straight up shot, but is totally unaffected. So it appears as though he's impervious to physical damage, which is kinda Candyman's only way of eliminating people. Just saying. Unless you're allergic to bee stings and can't afford ridiculously overpriced EpiPens, Candyman just isn't really scary. He's some strange mix of poorly workshopped horror concepts that doesn't affect the world beyond your Hulu recommendations. Thanks for that, by the way. But the Slender Man? He targets our deepest fears, and so strong is his ability to affect others that he inspired 3 separate real-world murder attempts in his name, and an epidemic of suicide attempts in early 2015. Just learning a little too much about him puts you in danger, and that Lovecraftian catnip means, well, everyone listening to this podcast is fucked. Sorry, y'all.
Part of Slender Man's scariness is the mystery surrounding him. His featureless face, denoting that he neither needs to eat, drink, breathe, or even see to catch his prey. His ability to be completely quiet and sneak up on even the most wary. His demonstrating of being able to traverse extremely long distances incredibly quickly by what is most likely drifting, floating, or teleportation. And his ability to transfer static upon his prey's eyesight, disorienting them and allowing him to close in for a kill. This all adds up to one extremely creepy and proficient killer. Which brings us to Slender Man's unorthodox combat prowess. He can cause his prey to become physically ill and weak just by being in close proximity to him. He can cause them to have nightmares, nosebleeds, and crazy paranoia. Just by looking at his creepy, dank meme face, can a person experience overwhelming dread, passing out on the spot, only to be taken to some lair the Slender Man calls home. Probably Hot Topic. His multiple expanding and contracting tentacles can take him to places unreachable by average beings, and since they can grasp and pull Slender Man up, they could be theorized to be usable in combat to either grab, drag, or bag his victims. He can turn invisible, completely change his body structure, and exert mind control, as Kit said. He can appear at any time, in a forest, in your home, in your bed, anywhere.
I just had like a vision of him being all like blankets up to the chin, snuggled in with
a
you.
little nightcap on his head.
Aw, Slendy.
I mean, I would die screaming, but it's very cute.
Let's look at how Candyman would actually attempt to kill Slender Man. Candyman has a hook, which he uses to murder people that summon him. First, Slender Man could easily teleport, dodge, or change his entire body shape to avoid Candyman's literal right hook.
Oh.
Nope. Try again.
He has all the tentacles in the world to immobilize Candyman. Cthulhu would be proud. We can see Candyman is subject to some physical laws, like he can be impaled and attempted to be taken down with melee, whereas Slender Man doesn't really have that kind of limitation. You know,
If Slender Man was secretly Nicolas Cage, maybe Candyman's bees would scare him.
There it
But
is.
Sadly, but sadly, Slender Man is not afraid of those things. Except calling all movie producers, please make Slender Cage happen. Therefore,
Candyman's freakiest feature and other physical prowess, if you want to call it that, would barely affect Slendy. It should tell you something that Candyman is constantly fighting and killing in order to not fade into obscurity. He's just not that scary. So with no true weaknesses and having all the time in the world, Slender Man can't possibly be defeated by Candyman. Theorized to be a story told for thousands of years, Slender Man has so much more experience than Candyman, abducting victims and disposing of them without a trace. With no trail to pick up on, Candyman won't even be able to track Slender Man in an actual fight, thanks to Slender Man being completely quiet and being able to teleport. The only time Candyman will be seeing Slender Man is if Slender Man wants him to, which is of course only a strategy to psychologically torment the future victim Candyman will become. There is no way for Candyman to know how to defeat Slender Man, nor any way for Candyman to know how Slender Man will strike. If Candyman were to somehow learn more of Slender Man or actively be trying to hunt him, that's when Slender Man gets even more dangerous. According to multiple sources, Slender Man enjoys hunting down people who think they know what he's about. People who have an interest in finding him or understanding him. Slender Man understands the long fight. He has stalked victims for years, waiting for the perfect moment to strike, driving them crazy beforehand. Slender Man embodies helplessness, the unknown of driving people absolutely bonkers with fear. Candyman won't be much of a challenge for him. He'll just be some shitty, sugar-free dessert on Slender Man's menu.
Well, that just lost me another couple hours of sleep tonight. Team Candyman. Oh no. Not the bees. Not the bees.
And there's the hat trick.
Oh.
Let's start with our usual rundown of the combatants and their abilities, shall we? Candyman is an immortal...
hashtag Dad's list.
Thank you. It's quasi-list-like. There's lists within. Candyman is an immortal spirit of vengeance fueled by a rage so great it has carried him through death itself and transformed him into a supernatural being. Now, this isn't a case of the devil showing up and giving him a chance to exact his revenge or something like that. Old Daniel Robitaille is a self-made ghost who decided to make it in the big, mean world on his own, and was able to do so thanks to his unbreakable willpower and unquenchable hatred. He's strong enough to lift a full-grown man off the ground with one hand and then rip him in half, and later picks up another man, again with one hand, and throws him across the room with enough force that he goes through the metal wall at the far end. He can fly, teleport, turn invisible, move objects with his mind. Oh, and he's pretty much invulnerable. He takes a flaming spear to the chest in the first movie and is fine, and any subsequent attacks to harm him just result in swarms of bees erupting from his wound before he heals up. Because,
Bees!
oh yeah, he can control bees. Lots of bees. Bees in swarms so huge they can sting a person to death in seconds, somehow break through a window, and cover a city. Candyman 3 makes no sense, y'all. No sense. But let's not forget about his psychic powers, which are considerable. In the first movie, Candyman is able to very casually deliver a psychic attack to Helen in a parking garage that almost knocks her off her feet, and his voice is able to hold her in hypnotic trance. In the second movie, he fills Annie's head with images of his own death so strong that she's utterly paralyzed. In the third movie, Candyman's psychic attack instantly brings Caroline to her knees and reduces her to a screaming, blubbering mess. We see that Candyman is capable of enthralling hundreds of people at a time, turning them into his congregation, who are willing to literally murder for him. The third movie also shows how he can create highly immersive and realistic illusions in the minds of his victims, removing any sense of reality from them and turning them into his puppets. Now, all of these abilities, by the way, are definitive and canon. They happen on the screen, and we have plenty of evidence for them. Now, let's look at what Slender Man can do. Well, he can teleport, similar to the way that Candyman does. He can kind of freak people out by looming over them or appearing where they didn't expect him to. Other than that, well, that's about it. Don't get me wrong, there's plenty of forums dedicated to hypothesizing about old Slendy, but the truth is, those are just hypotheses, and any evidence otherwise is inconsistent and easily contradicted by other pieces of evidence. I could say, with just as much evidence as anything Team Slendy can present to you tonight, that Slender Man will go away if you give him $20. Is this canonical? It's as canonical as any other freaking thing about this dude because it is a legitimate theory offered up by the same fans who establish every other thing about this character. It's even recognized by the creators of the Slender video game, who incorporated this interpretation of the character into one of the game modes. You say he's an otherworldly eldritch horror. I say he just wants $20. No way to tell who's right. As we've saw with Kit and Liz, they are leaning on the mysteriousness of this character, about how he could potentially do anything. But I'll remind the judge that the sword of Slender Man's mysteriousness cuts both ways. He could be capable of anything, but he's just as easily capable of nothing. Anything beyond his ability to teleport and freak out YouTubers is pure speculation. Candyman can do both of these things too, but we have solid and definitive evidence that he's capable of much, much more.
In the opening of the 1992 film Candyman, our protagonist, and I'm going to call him our protagonist, says, "They will say that I have shed innocent blood. What's blood for, if not for shedding?"
God,
this
so
is
dumb.
a guy who has a really firm grip on his relationship to vital bodily fluids. They're for spilling, and he's just the man for the job. I don't want to put too fine a point on it, but Candyman is a story about racism and racist fears. His origin story is being violently tortured and killed by a lynch mob for daring to love a white woman.
The story is pretty clear that he's got ample reason to be enraged.
And my gracious, does he use that? He kept a violent eye on his own family for generations, a task that shows razor-sharp attention as well as ruthlessness. He followed people from Chicago to New Orleans to LA. He's not afraid to take to the road in pursuit of his victims. He's also killed other people who've gotten in the way or happened to say the magic words, which is just sort of a fun bonus. His needs are simple: fame, attention, and something to stick his hook into. He's a being sustained by attention and his own unspeakable rage, but he's not some paranormal activities pissant beginner. He's an accomplished master of his craft with an obsessive nature. Slender can't hope to escape a spirit who sees people as an opportunity to paint a new canvas of rage and further his legacy. What could make him more renowned than killing Slender Man? And I have a quote here from Slender Man on his motives for crimes. That's it. That's the quote. First of all, because he doesn't have a mouth. Secondly, because we have no information at all on his motives. Slender Man's sort of the David Attenborough of abductions. Lots of stalking and lingering in the backgrounds. He probably has a field notebook in his jacket pocket. Yes, he did used to be the traditional sort of forest-lurking dismemberer we're all familiar with. But he's transitioned into a fear-based approach, which is great for YouTube hits, less so for taking out a century-old rage spirit. Let's presume that Slender manages to spirit Candy away to whatever plane of existence he inhabits. First, Candy is going to be pissed because it's rude to just move people into a different plane of existence. Second, those bees are gonna be pissed. Slender now has to deal with an angry, telekinetic, super strong specter and his army of bees that love their bee daddy / living apiary.
Bee daddy! That's gotta be like a male stripper name.
Oh, I'm Googling it after this. Anyway.
Well, we know what the sexy pictures we're getting from Liz this week are going to be of.
Did you know that bees can recognize faces? According to studies published in 2013 by biologists Elizabeth Tibbets and Adrian Dyer, they can. Obviously, the only reason to remember faces is in order to take revenge, which is what these bees are going to do. They will remember who Slender is, and they will follow him with their stingy butts until he gives up. Slender has tentacles, you might say, which are great if you could use them. As far as the bees are concerned, tentacles are just additional surface area. Can Slender Man grab him? I guess, but Candy's telekinesis is going to put a stop to that pretty fast if he doesn't just get his hook in and tear Slendy cakes from groin to gullet, as Candyman says. If this was about who you planned on hiring to take someone out, you're going to choose the person with an actual resume. Candy's got one. He has specific kills in specific places. He has a list of victims that is verifiable and an impressive list of kill skills. He also finishes the job, which is a plus. Slender Man has no body of work to show, and his skills are vague at best. This is the difference between the job candidate, who has a polished resume with multiple references printed on custom stationery, and the job candidate who just scrawled "please hire, will not work weekends" on the back of a bus ticket and handed it to the receptionist.
You just described all of me.
point is, the guy with the empty resume can't do the job, and he certainly can't hope to take out Candyman. Slender Man is essentially just a very successful performance artist. Great with his video installations and his work with audio distortion that symbolizes our disconnected audiovisual world and the ephemeral nature of memory.
Seriously, his artist statement on Tumblr is very moving. Ultimately,
creatures like Jaws are scary. Freddy Krueger is scary. Pennywise is scary. Slender Man is just a tall, awkward nonsense being who probably wants directions to the dry cleaner.
Now, as I mentioned before, there's a lot of contradictory nonsense floating around about Slender Man on the internet. Which makes sense, right? The guy was basically invented by some bored dudes on something awful. So, if there's a lot of different versions of this guy, a guy who was created largely by and for fans, then the most popular fan theory about him is most likely correct. Well, the leading fan theory about Slender Man is not that he's an ancient alien, or a quantum entity, or a god, but that he's a tulpa, a creature created by and of thought. This is so widely accepted amongst fans that it has become known as the core theory, because it's able to encompass even the otherwise contradictory versions of Slender Man running around out there. Being composed of and shaped by the thoughts of humans certainly makes Slender Man unique amongst the various and sundry horror-themed monsters out there, but it also reveals one incredible weakness. He's only as invulnerable and powerful as we believe him to be. Slender Man is weakened when you don't believe in him, and he can actually die when you don't fear him. This is certainly the suggestion made in Tribe 12, one of the leading Slender Man YouTube series. Candyman dares you not to believe in him. He wants you not to fear him, because he relishes the opportunity to prove just how wrong you are. Candyman attacks those who doubt, but against those who doubt, Slender Man is powerless. Slender Man only has as much power as Candyman is willing to give him, and when it comes to fear, Candyman has none for Slender Man to feed on. Defeating him will be as simple as looking at him and having the focus and strength of will to shape him into a thing which is easily slain. And when it comes to psychic willpower, the Candyman can.
Yay!
I see
Knew it was
what you
coming.
did there.
Yep.
So I just went and put on a pot of coffee because I have no interest in closing my eyes tonight. It is now time for rebuttals, and right now I'm pretty thoroughly divided between these two characters, y'all. So, Team Slenderman, give me something to wrap my tentacles around.
Okay, let's start with the last point you made. Slenderman is only as, strong as, the people he's on. That's strange, because you're, forgetting that he regularly cultivates fear among victims. He has a lot of victims. He's all over the place. Actually, it's why he tends to go after children, because they're really trusting and curious, and then he torments them for up to, decades before he finally, cashes the horror check and kills them as adults. But he has so many victims, Candyman's not going to be the only...
Have you ever cashed the horror check? It's an extremely painful process.
I mean, that's the point.
I can never get down to the horror bank before it closes.
Oh no, that's where you're wrong, Dan. It's always open.
I just drop in the horror ATM.
They have an app now. Anyway, even if Candyman isn't intimidated, which he will be because Slender Man has that psychic influence as well. So I think they're going to have a cool, psychic battle. Maybe a la that shitty X-Men movie that came out that we're not going to talk about anymore. But
I need more.
To go off Kid's point, I want to address this hilarious tulpa and core theory. Well, guess what the competing theory to that is? Fucking quantum theory, which basically entails Slender is everywhere and anywhere and can basically time travel and be taking advantage of his victims before they even know what's happening.
Time travel, dude.
So there's that as well.
Right, but see, the thing about the quantum theory is that theory presupposes that he's in a weird quantum state. But the thing about being in a weird quantum state is you stop being in that state when someone looks at you. That's what, the whole observational thing of quantum theory is. If Candyman is looking at Slender Man can't move because he's stuck in that one quantum state. And then Candyman can just go up and cut him open and fill him full of bees.
He's folklore. He's not some shitty horror movie shit character.
That just means you don't know anything about him.
That's what makes Lovecraftian creatures
It makes
so
him
amazing.
Scary, but he's not gonna scare Candyman.
Time travel, teleportation. Have fun in the fucking Triassic,
Now-
motherfucker. Or maybe in the distant future in space.
So I disagree with Dan just saying that he's not going to scare Candyman. I think he can do that judging by his mind control, inserting thoughts into other people's minds, causing that paranoia. Because let's look at Candyman, right? We're talking about he's a rage-fueled monster because of some unfortunate things that, well, very shitty things that happened before he became a ghost. You don't think Slender Man's gonna find out about that and maybe impose images in Candyman's mind of his wife being horribly tortured or something and cause him to get upset and to make a mistake and to go nuts? Slenderman, he won't even, put himself in front of Candyman to look at. He'll just be putting all these thoughts in him. Candyman will start clawing his own face out with his hook.
Liz, that's like trying to defeat the Hulk by making him angry. Being angry is basically Candyman's thing. That's the reason he's still around, and that's why he's terrorizing people, is because his anger carried him through death itself.
Yeah, but I'm talking about, anguish. Actually going in and replaying those events, I'm sure that would mess Candyman up in some way if it has led him to pursue being a shitty ghost serial killer.
We're basically throwing two completely impervious creatures against each other, because your guy apparently can take a good hit. When he takes that flaming spear, does it, go through him or what?
It goes into him.
Slenderman gets shot and nothing. Bees are not going to do shit to him.
Well,
so I think what wins here is getting transported the fuck away, forever gone.
I think what wins here is a psychic attack, which essentially reduces you to a being which is not as powerful as everyone else is giving you the ability to be. That's the downside about being a creature who's composed of thought.
Has Candyman been on Creepypasta? Because how would he know anything about how Slenderman works?
How would
is he going to have $20 on him?
I don't
think so.
know anything about how Candyman worked. Did he sit and watch the movies?
His nature is to observe people
he can mind read, basically.
He observes people for very long periods of time.
You do not know that Slenderman can do that. That is entirely speculation.
If he can cause paranoia and things like that, he has some sort of mind control.
Well, then, do we not know whether his victims were just susceptible to such things? Candyman is
No, because a lot of the time it's random.
He definitely creates hallucinations in his victims.
So does Candyman. Exact same.
Well, how are you gonna create a hallucination that scares some random mysterious Eldritch horror where you can't base anything off of?
I mean, I don't know that Candyman has a brain that Slenderman could affect. There's a very small number of ways that you can actually kill Candyman. Slenderman will know none of them. The best way to kill Slenderman, and again, I will emphasize, this was in Tribe 12, which is a Slenderman series. The best way to kill him is to direct your thoughts and willpower against him, which Candyman has wheelbarrows of.
We're gonna have to stop there. I'm throwing that coffee out. Not gonna need it. Not gonna need it. The caffeine is gonna do nothing at this point that isn't already going on. Still not sure about this argument, so Team Candyman, I need a little something more I can sink my hooks into.
This is basically a confrontation between these two characters. And the thing is, Candyman is a way more efficient killer than Slenderman is. You guys have talked about it. When Slenderman decides that he wants to kill someone, he stalks them for decades at a time, really drawing on their paranoia and fear, and then maybe he pulls the proverbial trigger, although we can see numerous times throughout the various series that he's in that regular people are able to escape his more aggressive attacks pretty reliably. But then, in the Candyman movies, when Candyman decides that he wants to kill you, you're dead. Usually within, seconds.
Yeah, and you're also, a people. Slenderman is not a people, whereas Candy used to be a people.
Or he tries to torture you by killing people around you and not actually killing you and taking forever.
Those are the people that Candyman doesn't want to kill. When he decides to kill you, you're dead. The only people who survive are the ones that he's more interested in using or keeping alive, like Helen in the first movie, and Annie in the second movie, and Caroline in the third movie. Everyone else ends up with their throat cut or their guts torn out.
Okay, fine. They get into fisticuffs. Let's look at not necessarily who would kill each other the fastest, but Slenderman would easily immobilize Candyman before Candyman could even touch him. Have we forgotten about the 8 frickin' tentacles that can come out of Slenderman's back that can stretch to extreme lengths, like friggin' Mr. Fantastic?
Candyman has telekinetic powers. How will those tentacles fare in the midst of telekinetic powers?
Yeah, you know what I'd rather have than tentacles is telekinesis.
How reaching are the...
I would rather have tentacles. I mean, if they can stretch as far as I want.
Yeah, but that's you, kid.
Even with telekinesis, remember what I said about quantum theory. His tentacles will be there before Candyman even realizes it.
That's speculation.
And who's to say that his The whole thing is Slender Man is speculation. Shut up, Dad.
Exactly my point. You don't know any of this.
We don't even know if Candyman's hook could go through Slender Man. But I do have a valid point in saying Slender Man could immobilize Candyman, whereas Candyman could not do that with any of his tools at disposal against Slender Man.
You know Candyman can teleport, right?
Yeah, but can't teleport through time. Good luck getting out of Jurassic.
I mean, he can, but it's linear.
All right, that was good.
All right.
That deserves a long distance high five, Bob.
Okay, drop your
Oh,
mic,
okay,
Bob.
I'm high-fiving
All
right now.
there. Slender Man grabbing you is not strictly fatal because we see in the game Slender the Arrival.
I'm not saying it would.
Well, okay.
I specified immobilization.
Okay, sure. But the thing is, like, in the game Slender the Arrival, Lauren is able to break free of Slender Man's grasp. Lauren. If Lauren can break free of this, I'm fairly certain Candyman can.
So I'm pretty sure we've
Sorry.
established. I'm pretty sure we've established that just like Candyman likes to play with his victims, Slender Man also loves playing with his victims.
he
Who's to
plays
say
with
he did
victims.
not let her go?
Yeah.
That is his MO.
Even if Slender Man gives him that squidgy hug, that's just bringing the hook into closer range.
Or putting two tentacles around his arm to prevent that from closing in on him.
I mean, I think at that point,
he's got 8.
he's got bees,
Oh,
I guess, but bees are
Yeah,
worse than
like-
bullets.
But also, Slender Man has no place for those bees to go. What are they going to do? Land on his bandaged skin? Land on his nicely cut Italian
Land?
suit?
No, not the suit.
Bees
Nothing.
can totally sting through a suit. Also, they're gonna land on the tentacles.
What if the bees lost their mind? What if they became proxies?
Okay, somebody just said the words "bees can totally sting through a suit," and then somebody else said, "What if the bees lost their minds?" So, I
It's
think
done.
we're done with rebuttals.
I think so.
At this point, if I'm ever gonna sleep again, I'm gonna need like some peace and quiet and just some real calmness going on here. So please, if none of you, all you could just like refrain from making any loud noises or flashing any bright lights or anything like that. Oh fuck! It's the lightning
Oh
round.
no!
Oh,
We were so close.
That's a bright light. Ow.
Why weather?
You guys are about to hate me so much. I
Oh
love
boy,
it.
so excited.
Okay.
I feel like I'm going to love you.
Well, this battle between evil spiritual forces is getting really heated, and you know what happens when that psychic energy starts flying around. In fact, as Candyman and Slender Man struggle for victory, the fight gets so intense that a localized hole begins to appear in the already thin fabric between realities. Ghosts and spirits from every corner of the multiverse are drawn to this epic combat, but the doorway is only big enough for one. Realizing what's happening, the two ghostly murderers cease their battle and turn toward the widening tear in time and space. From it emerges... Is that another ghostly murderer? Is that Ghostface from the Scream series? Oh wait, no, my mistake. He's taking off the mask now and revealing himself to be... Oh, Ghostface Killa of the Wu-Tang Clan.
Yeah.
Oh god.
The legendary rapper explains that he's coming out with a new album and it's going to be awesome. But it needs a great gimmick if Ghostface actually wants to get mighty healthy sales in an era of ubiquitous torrenting. So when he heard that 2 actual Ghostface killers were duking it out, he knew it was destiny. He wants either Candyman or Slender Man to be a featured rapper on the new album. But he needs to know how deadly they can be. And not deadly with hooks or tentacles, deadly with shadow boxing rhymes.
Oh my god.
You have to bring the pain. After all, cash rules everything around you. Dollar bill, y'all. If you want to triumph as the next hip-hop superstar, it's yours. You just have to tell me what your rapper name is, what your hit song would be called, and I'm gonna need you to hit me with a little verbal intercourse.
Oh,
with
no!
your opponent.
That's all you, Liz?
Oh,
If you-
Jesus!
Oh my
Well,
god.
Slender Man ain't nothing to fuck with, but
Slender Man went first in the regular round, which means that Team Candyman will be going first in the lightning round. So, Team Candyman, protect your neck.
Look, I just want to say that Candyman already has the look down. Now, is it a throwback look? Yes, it is. However, that's very in right now. We are experiencing the 70s again and sort of the 90s as well, which is a little weird. But he's committed to the look. It's working. I think that alone, he could easily have a tiger on a chain. God damn it, Dan. I don't know anything about rap. We are all so fucking white.
Basically, these two people, one of whom we've never seen talk, the other has been an entity in like urban Chicago for over a century, overseeing the birth of rap itself. So, you're talking about rap and like, one of the key factors in any rap song is a really good hook. And, like, obviously, this man knows from hooks. You need a good bass line. His bees can do that for him. And I think one particular excerpt, his little featured element in the Ghostface Killa album, would go a little something like this. God forgive me for what I'm about to do.
Yes, I'm so happy.
He ain't listening right now, so...
Yeah. He's turned his back on this podcast.
If he knows what's good for him.
Yo, I've been ghosting and killing, but now I'm a rapping. My hook's so big you'd think I was a captain. Now I'm in the scene, I'm gonna be filthy rich. But all I got for you, man, is sweets for the bitch.
Oh, yeah, that was unfucking believable.
Alright,
Womp womp womp!
I'm gonna go find a lump of shame and just live there for the rest of my life.
So everyone, I'm single now.
Bring out the town crier. Oh my god. Obviously, the name of the album is Candyman Gone Pound Your Candy Ass.
All right. On that note, let's
Fuck you, Miles. This is the worst.
I told
I thought
you.
we were friends. I was wrong. Alright.
Welcome to the show, Bob.
Well, Slender Man, bring it with the words and speaking.
Team Slenderman, are you indeed nothing to fuck with? Or do you have hollow bones?
Ha! Slender Man, Slim Slendy Man. We the Slim Slendy, okay? Our hit single,
A lot of hit singles. I don't know what you're talking about.
called
Not the
Static.
Oh, I like that.
Slim Slendy Static. That's the EP that's dropping. And here's an excerpt from Candy, You Ain't Got Shit.
Okay.
Prescient, okay.
Slim Slendy in the house. Catching up your kids. You can't fight back, but you're talking all this smack. Static in your face. You ain't safe in your place. Oh, is that a frown? Get the hell down. Candy, you ain't got shit.
That does
Oh my god, my
special.
life is complete.
Is there a rating above explicit that we could mark for this one? Just like painful?
Caution, white people rap.
I don't rap.
That's going in the episode description.
That was just like a poem delivered in a certain timbre. I don't
Yep.
know.
The second biggest single off of that album was Always Watches, parentheses, no, 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 no. And it's just a lot of static, and there's like footsteps, and
I just got
it's
an
very
image.
artistic.
I just got an
It's an
image.
ASMR album,
Oh my god.
but you may not actually sleep. It may keep you up.
I just got an image of Slender Man with a grill, which is maybe the most disturbing thing I've ever had in my head.
I guess you could arrange it in his bandages, I guess.
Yeah.
Always slick, always
Oh
slim.
my god. Alright,
I
well.
didn't start tonight with regrets, but I've definitely...
Oh man. Yeah.
Welcome to the show for realsies now.
Seeing as I'm apparently not getting any freestyling out of Kid.
Yeah, the one person who's not completely white here.
I have too much pride.
Oh god, that warms my heart. Not sure it even matters who wins at this point, because I think the winners are me and everyone who listens to this. But basically I've given up on sleep as a concept. So I'm just gonna like go deal with my insomnia, and while I'm lying in my bed, totally not closing my eyes for any reason, I will probably go ahead and make a decision on this contest. So feel free to make static noises amongst yourselves for a few minutes.
All right, so I'm so tempted. Oh shit.
That was the biggest build up to the most half-hearted scream.
But yeah, I while researching this, besides the fact that I was getting more and more paranoid of being in my own house, God, it made me so tempted to take like photos of. I have this one friend who's very, very easily scared, and I really, really want to take some of her Facebook photos and like Photoshop Slender Man in the background, and then be like, "Hey, did you see?" But like that would that she like actually gets really bad nightmares from the simplest horror thing, so I can't actually.
Kid is a terrible friend.
I know.
Yeah.
Kid is the person who has snuck terrifying pictures of Nicolas Cage into places in our friend's house where she intends for them not to find them for months at a time.
Oh, it's so glorious. It's one of those things where you don't have to be there to enjoy the outcome. Because months
You
later...
just know.
Yeah.
I remember a time when I wasn't a living embodiment of shame.
What was that like?
I don't know. It must have been, 10 minutes ago? Has it been that long already? Let that be a lesson for everyone. You don't know what you got till it's gone.
Oh, so deep.
Well, those movies were terrible.
Yeah.
Am I the only one who watched all 3 Candyman movies here?
You are.
Yeah.
Oh,
I was too
goodness.
scared. I watched even like bits and was like, oh Jesus, this is.
I saw the fucking bees part in 2 and I got so angry. That's not how bees do.
Oh, when they kill him in the flashback?
When they sting him
These are
because
ghost
he has,
bees.
because he has honey on, no, before. Like when he's still Daniel.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then because he has honey on him, a gigantic swarm of bees.
They might
comes
as well
out.
be freaking ghost bees, because like they just put some honey on this dude. Are bees like sharks? Like, can they like smell a drop of honey from a mile away and then
Honey
they just
chum.
start swarming?
Hold on, I got you. No, they are not.
Oh, okay,
They're not
all
fucking.
And all those bees died. All ones
Oh,
that died.
no, that's so sad.
Yeah, obviously, but like, but then you see them swarm away, and like, that's
yeah,
not how.
yeah.
That is doubly not.
What are you
how-
doing, bees? What are you doing?
Oh,
So, if you wanted to attract a bunch of bees, do you just make yourself smell like bee pheromones, or like what do you do?
I mean, you go.
I'm
up to
asking
the
for a
hive
friend.
and you have to find them and be a jerk, and then they will kill you.
Oh, so this
Just like
is
a
not.
flower or something.
I can't make friends and then sort of form a gang.
Oh, a bee. Oh, Write that into the Yahoo answers.
Bob showed me this amazing page when we were doing research. It was the WikiHow article on how to not be afraid of Slender Man.
Oh shit! Please tell me how. Please give me the knowledge.
It was the best. We could have basically just made our arguments on that alone.
Like they were
One
breaking
is to
down.
use logic. It said
Postulating about, like, maybe he's not here to murder you. Maybe he's just looking for directions, something like that.
one thing.
He does wander around in the forest a lot.
It says to think about his background. Let's take what we know about this guy. He wears a suit every day. What kind of person wears a suit every day? Either he's incredibly educated and has a well-paying job, or he's Barney Stinson. Let's consider both these theories.
WikiHow,
And,
ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah. Dan and I were discussing Slender Man, and we posited that the reason that he takes children is that he's just running an orphanage.
Oh, yeah.
But it's in another dimension.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like a Professor X type thing, but much weirder.
It's like the reverse version of the X-Men. It's like, you choose all these normal children to go
And
and
then
live
you
with this
just
weirdo.
ruin them.
Yep. Then you make them
I'm going to
terrible.
raise these children terribly.
Yep.
Talking about Xavier, I see.
I presume, anyway, that you're talking about Xavier.
You leave us alone for long enough, and that's what happens.
I love the way you say Xavier like you're friends with him and you're disappointed.
That's basically how I feel about
I
him.
know, you're like, oh.
It's like I spent so much time with him as a child that he was like one of my heroes, and then I grew up and read the comics again. It's like, oh
yeah, that guy's terrible.
He's the worst.
There's nobody in all of comics who's good with kids. Everybody who has a chance to be around a child and be like, oh, I'll take care of you, fucks it up.
All right. Well, this was incredibly difficult for a number of reasons. First and foremost being I'm still laughing about the freestyle.
Can we never, ever mention this ever again?
No, we can't not do that. Yeah, no, that's going to happen. So this was a really difficult contest. I think it kind of turned into what I was afraid it was going to turn into for a little while. Both these guys can't be hurt, it seems. Both these guys can teleport, it seems. Both these guys have psychic abilities, it seems. And I didn't
Only one of them has bees, though.
Only one of them has bees, that's true. I did not get an incredibly clear sense in any of those departments as to one of them being stronger than the other one. Team Candyman did a really good job of really emphasizing the fact that this is a spirit who has such tremendous force of will via his anger that he can get so much shit done. I also think that Team Slenderman did an excellent job of kind of using the vagueness of the character in their favor in terms of presenting Slenderman as a sort of mythological figure who is in many ways beyond all these paltry human things that the Candyman is so focused on. What it ultimately comes down to is two things. First of all, I really like the idea, the time travel arguments from Slender Man. I don't think those were really addressed by Candyman as opposed to, or the quantum state argument, which I'm not sure any of us have a full grasp of how quantum mechanics work.
We wouldn't be doing this fucking show if we understood.
Yeah.
quantum.
But, the primary defense of Team Candyman for that was well, that's speculation, which is true, but as stated, it's all speculation. Bottom line, this match and these characters are about fear, and when you get right down to it, the scariest thing there is the unknown scary. And so, by the slightest hair, because that's what I have to go on, and because the team did an excellent job of conveying that, I'm going to have to give this match to Slender Man.
That's ironic because neither of those characters have any hair, so very, very inappropriate.
Oh, you were supposed to have us lose, Miles. Now Slender Man is just that much more real.
Yeah, well, that's what you get for rapping, Liz.
Thank you.
Good job, you guys. You guys put up as amazing a fight as I
yeah.
expected you to. Very
Excellent job from everybody involved. And MeganBob, we're very pleased to have you on the show as a regular co-host. Yep. So here in my knowledge that I have once again cost Dan a victory, we'll turn it over to Kit for the thanks.
Can we first talk about Podcat real quick? Because I keep forgetting to.
Sure.
I think we need to talk about Podcat.
All right.
It's this internet database of podcasts basically.
Yeah.
And they collect podcasts sort of, without the request of the podcast.
It has to be automated. It has to be just some kind of catcher.
So here's a weird thing that happens. It, puts together our episodes just because we're a podcast, and I think analyzes our descriptions, and then if we put the name of a celebrity in the description, so often in jest we do this, it says that we have that person on the episode as a guest. So Dan, some examples, if you will.
Okay, 1 second. Let me look it up.
Well, Nicolas Cage.
That was one. The one that I always think of is Christopher Lee on our Star Wars episode.
Oh no!
Oh god! If anyone found their way to Smash Fiction because Podcat made us sound so much cooler than we actually are, I'm sorry.
Now that being said, if Christopher Lee would like to come on this podcast, that would be horrifying due to his current situation. Yeah. But it's still a great honor.
Yes.
Oh man, I just looked up our latest match on Podcat, and
shit.
It lists John Carpenter, Jerry Seinfeld, and George Costanza. Not Jason Alexander, I will point out, but George Costanza.
Wow.
Oh man.
So Podcat, it's a beautiful thing. Apparently, we had Jessica Walter on episode 44.
Yeah.
We had Steve Miller on episode 41.
Oh my god. Wow.
Anyway, Podcat.
So yeah.
Completely a completely accurate summary of our guests.
Thanks for accidentally bringing us people, maybe?
Maybe. Christopher Lee fans?
I'm sorry. Okay, to Twitter. Thank you so much for retweeting some of our stuff. Susan Stacy, Rosalind Scott, Cosplay Fiend, Samaconda, and Sabina Musher. Paladin Today tweeted about us. Just a general nice thing. Thank you so much. Always a bro. Over to...
Never a hoe? Never mind.
Hey.
That's true.
You already said bitches on this.
That's true. That's true.
Over to Tumblr. Roz Scott, the wonderful Roz Scott, always helping us out by reblogging and retweeting. And one of the best things to come out of Tumblr this week, Clockwork Sketches posted some Stitch fan art that, if you guys follow us, you may have seen.
Yeah, check it out on Tumblr if you haven't seen it. It's pretty great.
Thank you for giving us fan art. I think so far we have two.
Both of Stitch with dinosaurs.
It's his golden days. And briefly, to Facebook, thank you to Lee Beat. He wrote in just to tell us that he and his family are fans of the show, and he's from Birmingham, UK. Liz, do you have a very special accent message for him, Liz?
Hello, Governor.
What the hell?
Lee, you're welcome.
For once, that's only the second worst thing that's happened on this show.
And I'm going to briefly say to Grayson Leal, because he mentioned he was really excited about the Slender Man being in a match. I hope we did him justice. Thank you for all your retweets, sweet blogs, and just kind messages, guys. We love you.
I just want to take a moment to say that I have actually started a new blog project that if anyone out here is a science fiction fan, which I assume you are, you might be interested in checking out. The project is called Universes of the Mind, and it involves me reading every novel that has won a Hugo Award for Best Novel in chronological order, and then writing about it. It came about because I was covering a science fiction issue at Worldcon a couple years ago, and realized that I knew jack shit about science fiction. Like, I've always been a fantasy guy. I saw this list, and I was like, there are a lot of books on this list that I feel like I should know about and should read about and would really like to write about. So I just started it, but right now I am writing about the first novel on the list, which is Alfred Bester's The Demolished Man. Present company may know Alfred Bester slightly better for being the man who wrote the Green Lantern Oath. So
nice.
That's a thing. And he wrote this book called The Demolished Man, won the first Hugo Award for Best Novel in 1953. It's a very good book. That's happening, and it's really, you know, it's supposed to be enjoyable, but it's also very much, you know, kind of in-depth literary analysis. So if you enjoy that kind of thing, check it out. It's at www.universesofthemind.com. And you can also find the complete reading list on the website as well. There's a link on universesofthemind.com to the list of books that I will be reading, which currently numbers 66. And by the time I'm finished, will be more than that, because it's going to take me way over a year. So... yeah, check it out. Universes of the Mind, universesofthemind.com.
And if I could say something about that, because I've read the first post in that Demolished Man series that you wrote. I think that the internet is kind of like overstuffed with a lot of people who like want to be critics of stuff without really having enough expertise and body of knowledge in a subject to be very critical about it, if that makes sense. And this is 100% not one of those things. Miles approaches this stuff with such a good level of analysis, such a smart take on everything. And like, I was really, really impressed with it. It's very clear that, you know, if we're talking in terms of skill points, Miles clearly took all of the skill points he could have put into, say, like, choosing the right winner on Smash Fiction and put it all into like literary analysis and writing really, really effectively. So even if you have no intentions of reading The Demolished Man or any of the titles on there, I still found it to be like a really rewarding just experience reading it.
Well, that is all the endorsement that I could ever ask for. Thank you for that, sir. I appreciate it. Thank you to fan Ben Chilton for suggesting this matchup, and thank you for listening to this week's episode of Smash Fiction. Next week, Smashtoberfest concludes with a 4-way Scare Games match. Freddy Krueger versus Imhotep versus Nemesis versus Jack Skellington.
Smash Fiction is produced by Miles Schneiderman, with logo design by Colin Mulcairn.
Special thanks to Kevin MacLeod for our theme song, which is called Hitman. You can find his work at www.incompetech.com.
You can follow the Smash Fiction Podcast on Twitter at SmashFicPodcast and search for us on Facebook and Tumblr.
Subscribe on iTunes, and if you leave us a good review, we shall become more powerful than you can possibly imagine.
If you have any suggestions, feedback, or other contributions, send them to us at smashfictionpodcast@gmail.com and help us continue the fight.
Well, he can teleport, similar to the way that Candyman can. Let me do that again. Well, he can teleport, similar to the way that Candyman does.
I'm sorry, Dan. Did you just rewrite a sentence because you didn't want to say the words the Candyman can?
Yes, I did.
Just making sure. If it had been me, I would have used that phrase like 10 times by now.
I'm going to, and I didn't want to take away the impact of when I use it, so...
Man, I've just been like all over your
yeah,
jokes.
Yeah, dude,
what the hell?
You're like the worst heckler. One who also has a mic. Now all those Candyman fans out there are going to be on my ass.
Yeah, both of them.
Oh! Wow. Miles, you're supposed to be impartial. For shame.
I am impartial. I was impartial. I don't need to be impartial anymore.
The duties of your office have been completed.
Yes, I made Dan freestyle rap. The duties of my office have been completed.
Are you going to retire from public life now?
I might just, like, kill myself. Like, what do I have to live for anymore?
You and me both, buddy.
You won't have